Hello and welcome to Regular Sports Hotline Live. My name is Daniel Caw. I'm delighted as always to be joined by the one and only Keith Jackson.
Good afternoon, Daniel.
How's it going?
Not bad.
And we are joined all the way from Celtic Park by the one and only Craig Swan. Swanee, how's it going?
Yeah, how you doing, boys? You okay?
Very good, thanks. Just a bit calmed down after a pretty mad game of football. I feel like I say this all the time, Keith.
What a wonder football match, wasn't it?
I've got no idea where to even start.
Yeah, what a wonder football match. I don't know what Swanee thinks. My view is that Celtic were absolutely nowhere near it. Even when they got back to 2-2, I felt that Rangers I thought they brought Celtic onto them in the second half. I think Celtic's first goal, Maida's header, great header, but that came from Rangers being sloppy, playing out from the back. I think it was a slack pass from Butland into the middle of the pitch. Yep. And I think Rangers created their own problems at that point. That said, when Celtic get to 2-2, you're thinking there's an inevitability about what comes next. Celtic win.
I feel like there's only going to be one winner.
Yeah. But I don't know what it is that Barry Ferguson is like. I don't know, Paul pie and spinach. I don't know what he's got them eating. They look like a different prospect entirely. There's tactically, they're much better. They're much more robust, much more secure. And that's all good in terms of the changes and tweaks that he's made. But it's a mentality thing that he's completely overhauled. That looks like a different group of players. And for them, because even though I think we would have both sensed at 2-2 Celtic go and win this.
Aye.
But Rangers actually sort of regrouped, regathered, you know.
Still kind of look dangerous in the break.
Well, Dessers goes through and does his Dessers moment.
Aye.
You know, only he would do that, chopping back in. And
I will say for Dessers, I thought he gave Carter-Vickers a torrid time.
He did.
Well, why don't Swanee? I mean, the first half, it wasn't just that Celtic were losing; it was the manner of the performance that I thought was really startling.
Yeah, I think it was obviously a huge blow to lose Callum McGregor, and he's the one who kind of dictates and takes control of the situations early in the game. Rangers started really well, won a free kick in the first 30 seconds, sort of pinned Celtic back, the type of thing that Celtic like to do on their own patch to Rangers. And Barry Ferguson said Rangers would make a fast start, and he did. He was as good as his word. Celtic were just really sloppy, just passing, just off. The radar was off all day. They just never got to the pace of the game in the first half.
Off the radar, Swanee. Aye, all right, mate.
They just didn't seem at it. Just too loose. I mean, for the whole season, we've been very praiseworthy of Kasper Schmeichel with the ball at his feet, and even he was making. I mean, why Václav Černý doesn't, with his first time with his right peg, just roll
got hit it.
No idea. But he just didn't have the confidence in his right foot, clearly. But just little things like that epitomised the sort of Celtic first half. And that just spread through the team. Guys just weren't on point. They just weren't where they needed to be.
I have to tell you, Swanee, I think you've absolutely nailed it, and I've mentioned that in my column for tomorrow. Callum McGregor's influence. If anybody doubts Callum McGregor's influence, and I keep saying it, and I know that I'm always raving about Callum McGregor.
Rightfully so.
But see what Celtic were missing, and how many times did you see? I mean, it was all throughout the game when the centre halves got the ball or Kasper Schmeichel got the ball. You're crying out for where's Callum McGregor?
They were looking for him.
Callum McGregor naturally creates angles.
Yeah.
To get a little pocket of space, and the ball gets fed into him, and Celtic build from there.
What he also does, Keith, is sorry to interrupt, Keith. What he also does is he settles other guys into the game by he takes control. He starts to get on it after 10 minutes. We've seen it in plenty of games when Celtic haven't started well. He then, as you say, makes angle. He takes it, then he gives it to someone and gets it back. He almost eases them into the game as well.
Correct.
Whereas he didn't have a person to do that today. So not only does he get in control of the game, but he also eases other guys into the game. In a kind of subtle way, so clever in the way he does it.
Yeah, and they get 30, 40 yards up the pitch every time because of it.
No.
And Celtic struggled in possession. I thought the midfield just didn't function. It didn't look balanced. Rangers had more men in there. I just think for Barry Ferguson today, you know, as I said, tactically I think he's got it spot on again. But how he's managed to change the mentality of an entire squad, that's quite a thing. That's quite an achievement.
The one guy, I just don't know what you think of this, Swanee, is that on a Celtic point of view, that comes away with positive marks. Nawrocki, maybe. I thought for him to come in those circumstances,
he did well.
I thought he did pretty well. I mean, aside from that though,
I mean, I think
I don't know.
Mike Narocki was interesting. I mean, it was such a huge moment for him to be introduced. You know, not a start this season, a couple of sub appearances in the cup. He's been out in the cold, and he came in and he did okay individually. You just wonder if there was a sort of cohesion issue with just one or two things with guy. Yeah. He didn't do anything personally wrong. I didn't think greatly in the game. I thought he was okay. I mean, he bailed Schmeichel out in the one when he made the mistake, and Czerny got in the first half. So I think he could be pleased enough. But there's just one or two things when you scan through the game again. When for instance, Hamza Igamane's winning goal, it's usually Austin Trusty who goes and attacks the first ball, and Carter Vickers defends off the back of him. Is that just a slight, rather than it being Narowski himself, just a cohesion thing of how things normally work? I don't know. Celtic's coaching staff will know that better than me. But yeah, given the fact he hadn't played for such a long time, I thought he did reasonably well. He certainly wasn't one of the ones who could be picked upon as underperforming. You'd individuals like Nicholas Kuhn who have been sensational for large parts of this season who just didn't turn up. There was too many guys like that in the Celtic team, unfortunately.
I thought Kuhn was awful today. Really poor.
Well, hooked at half time tells you all you need to know what Brendan Rodgers thought of him. But Alistair Johnson, and I rave about Alistair Johnson as well.
He's a brilliant player.
I think a really poor game today.
Very poor.
And even that summed him up at the Igamane winning goal. He slips, he loses his footing. Just little things. And
then I know he's not there to score goals as well, but he's got that chance right at the death. That was a big chance. Huge chance.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine how crushed Rangers would be if he'd put that in. You know? So, it wasn't a great day for him.
But I don't know, Swanee, what did you feel? I thought even when Celtic, in the process of getting back to 2-2, I still wasn't convinced that they were clicking. I still wasn't convinced they were... It didn't look like a real 10 out of 10 Celtic performance at any point. Yeah,
the two goals that Celtic scored were probably the only two real passages of play they had in the second half. It's just lovely. They're patient with the first one. There was a couple of guys had opportunities to have a go. They shuttled it wide, got the ball in for the header. Again, Luke McCown was nice and patient for the pass. They were really only the ones. There are only the moments in the second half where it felt really quite cohesive. A lot of the stuff just seemed to be off the cuff and hope for somebody to do something, which is most unlike Celtic. But again, do we put it all back to Callum McGregor? I think maybe you do.
I think you do, Swanee.
It's so understated what this guy does in terms of just everything clicking and working in tandem, and it just wasn't there today for Celtic.
Do you know the other thing that he brings is that calmness and authority, and you've mentioned it previously, Swanee, that sometimes it'll take Celtic 10 minutes to figure out what they're up against tactically. Callum McGregor is not just a good football player, he's a real thinker, and he works it out for himself in there, and he works out how to combat what the opposition's doing, what areas he needs to drift into. And Celtic didn't have that. They were playing without thinking in the middle of the park today. That's what Callum McGregor brings. It's an intelligence, an authority, and as Swanee says, I think he calms everybody round about him down. The amount of misplaced passes from Celtic today,
it was wild,
Yeah, I mean, look, they weren't very good in the last Old Firm game, were they at Ibrox? But that's as bad as they've been twice this season.
And if you factor in the cup final, they've now conceded 9 goals to Rangers and in the last 3 meetings. And as well, before today, I think I'm right in saying in the Premiership, Celtic had conceded only 3 goals all season. Match today. I mean, look, we're asking, if you want to send in a comment and get involved in the conversation, please do. I'll hit you with a few of these, Swanee. This one from Smudger. Shocking display by Celtic. Square ball Vickers nightmare. Jota's a poser. Johnson nightmare. Just as well, the league's gone. Shocking. This one as well that caught my Celtic fan saying, here we go. Big Dom saying, wake up call for Celtic. All the trophies are still coming to Celtic Park. But maybe this is a wake up call for Celtic. Maybe this is a kind of put up the backside that they needed. I mean,
well, you would have thought that would have happened the last one.
Exactly.
So, look, do you know something? In the big picture, in the grand scheme of things, this was a game that meant nothing. Because Celtic are home and hosed in the league, and they're going to go and win a domestic treble. So this game on its own meant nothing in terms of the bigger picture. If you narrow it down to Barry Ferguson, it meant everything. It could not have meant any more. It's now giving him a shot of really saying, look, I've got real credentials to do this job beyond the end of this season. We all know that he's been brought in a caretaker capacity. We all know that he's talked about he's just concentrating on the 3 months. It's ripping out of him how much he wants this job.
You can understand why.
Yeah, but look, that would have been the case in any event. And maybe if he'd, get a bit of a doing off Jose Mourinho and then get hammered at Celtic Park, maybe his appetite might have waned a little bit for him. And if anything, it's increased. And now I think the would-be American owners, he's presented them with a problem.
Huge
because
problem.
because what do you do if you? And I'm sure that they'll have their own ideas about what they want and how they see the club evolving and how to lead it forward. The first question is, who's your manager for next season? And right now, would you want to come in the door and say, this guy that's a club legend, that's just put Jose Mourinho out of Europe and beaten Brendan Rodgers at Celtic Park, going to just step aside? Because you can feel the connection between Ferguson, his players and the supporters. And that's all these ingredients that are vital to any success of any football team. But we're all absent under Philip Clement. It was all fractured. But somehow, in the space of 3 weeks, he's turned it around. And you have to look at it now and say, you have to be considered as a serious candidate for this position on longer term.
We're going to hear from Barry Ferguson in a little moment, but Swanee, where do you think today's victory leaves Barry Ferguson in terms of getting the job permanently?
I think we're dealing with a very small sample size at this stage. I mean, if you wanted to play devil's advocate, Philip Clement was able to get results in Europe and beat Celtic the last time. So I think you're dealing with a small sample size. You can't help but give Barry Ferguson credit. He's clearly come in and done something terrific. I would also be really interested to know the workings of the guys in behind him as well. I'm sure Neil McCann's had an influence tactically as well. The guys have all been working in tandem clearly, and they're coming up with good decisions and they're coming up with good plans, as was evident in Turkey against Fenerbahce and then again here today. But I think 5 games is maybe just a bit of a small sample size to be making calls like that at this stage for an ownership. What I would say is, you would certainly wish, if this was to continue, regardless of whether a new ownership wants a more glamorous name, for want of a better phrase, you would certainly want Barry Ferguson in the building, on the coaching staff, even if they don't see him as the main man.
Just on that, Swanee, Gary Taylor writes in here saying the Yanks will bring in a high-profile manager. Barry will be in a position at the club.
Yeah, I would think. I think as we stand at the moment, he's certainly doing enough to ensure that he's part of something going forward. But like I say, 5 games. It's a small sample size at the moment, but you cannot argue with the reaction that he's got from the players so far. It's been excellent.
See, just my opinion. I said this, I get slaughtered for it, by the way. A lot of people texting me going, "How can you?"
This keeps happening to you.
There's a theme emerging here. Look, how could you not have him at the front of the queue now? How could you not? I mean, look.
Well, you could if you've got your own ideas and you've got
But just to go back to what you were saying about the new owners, they might see if I was the new owner to come in, and we know he was there today. I pictured him at Andrew Kavanagh today. I'd look at it and just go, that's one nice decision. I'll give them a go for even a 1-year rolling contract, see how they do.
I think that it feels right. I just think that, this job, and it was too big, and it was always too big for Philip Clement. Mm-hmm. And you could see it from day one. And there have been previous examples. Pedro Caixinha, I was at his unveiling. I remember the day that he was given the job, and he was so unconvincing in the press conference. You just think, sometimes the job's just too big. Barry Ferguson, it feels as if it's fitting him like a glove right now.
Does feel that way.
It feels as if he's almost made for this. This is his moment. This is his time. And I think Swanee's right as well. Do you know what, Swanee? You know Patrick Stewart's independent review of the football side of the business? He's well just pulling that out, just ending it. Paid up whatever dues, whatever money has been accrued. Just put Barry Ferguson, Neil McCann, Billy Dodds and Al McGregor into an office with the incoming owners. They'll tell you everything that's wrong, because they walked into it and they couldn't believe how far Rangers had drifted as a club in terms of their standards, in terms of the behaviours, just the way that people go about their work.
It was Rangers name only.
Yeah, that exactly right. It drifted so far it was almost unrecognisable from the club that they remembered. And I think that's job number 1 for them, has been to try and bring it back to something which resembles how they remembered Rangers looking.
Sorry, Keith, I think I finished. Apologies.
No, go on, Swanee.
No, I was just going to say that it reminds me a little bit of Neil Lennon coming in at Celtic Park when Tony Mowbray left. Just getting that instant bounce for the players. And
Well,
get that response.
That's the thing, Swanee. I know this can happen a lot with interim managers, can't it? The players get a bounce. And actually, I don't want to sound too sanctimonious, right, but I think that's a good point that John makes. John says, why do Rangers only seem to turn up and win derby games when they don't matter in the grand scheme of things? Sure, they matter on the day, but the league's done and dusted. And I do think the Rangers, again, don't want to sound too kind of high and mighty, but the Rangers players need to look in the mirror, because how have they been playing like this and losing at Holme Motherwell and at Dundee and St Mirren and stuff like that? It's really poor.
The Motherwell one, Barry Ferguson will take ownership of that because he was in charge. But look, do you know what? I've just talked about a transformation in the mentality of these players. I believe that to be true. And I think that's attributable clearly to Barry Ferguson and his coaching staff. They've basically set about the place.
Aye.
They've basically gone in there and they've torn.
That's a great phrase, isn't it?
They've torn it upside down. Now, little things. For example, the kitchen staff, the people in the laundry room, they were kind of ostracised. They had their place and they had to stay in their place, and there was no mingling with the previous coaching staff or the previous manager. From day one, I know that they've made a point, Barry Ferguson, Neil McCann, Billy Dawes, of getting about the place, of just bringing a bit of life and energy and bringing it all together, making it a cohesive.
The thing you said last week about it's just a good place to go to work.
Yeah.
Like this place.
Yeah.
Swanee, I think we've done amazing to get this far into the show without anyone coming up behind you and trying to get involved. So we'll maybe let you get up the road.
Just jinxed it now, haven't you?
As long as it's anyone but Michael Gannon, we'll be happy. I lost Swanee there.
Right, Swanee.
Okay, lads, I don't know what was said there. I think you did jump at the end because everything went frozen. But if that's me being signed off, then I'll see you all later.
Thanks so much, Swanee. We really appreciate
Swanee.
Cheers.
Cheers, mate.
Record Sports, Craig Swan there. Well, before we go any further, then let's hear a little bit from the Rangers interim manager, and I think we can hear from John Souttar as well.
I think if you look at the game overall, we deserved it. I thought the first half was that was the game plan we came with. I thought the boys stuck to it perfectly. The second half, you always know Celtic are going to come at you because the crowd's getting frustrated. I thought Brendan would make a change or two. He certainly did that. It made a difference to the Celtic team. They obviously got back into the game at 2 each. But then I take a step back and what I've been trying to drum into the boys, it's more you need at Rangers than being a good player. It's been labelled, used guys, everybody in the media about character, and this is one of the things I stress to them when I come in. It takes a certain time to be a very good Rangers player, and my group of players are certainly starting to show that. Did I fear that we could lose the game? No, again, I'll say I take a step back and I think, right, go and show me what you've got in the locker. And what they've got in the locker is coming back into the game and getting that brilliant goal from Hamza, who will be disappointed because he's not been playing. I think he's a player with huge potential, but he needs to work on certain things if he wants to be a starter. But he's certainly taken that on board, and he's come on and he's given me an issue now.
Well, you've got a couple of weeks now to the next game. Last year's a few times about thinking ahead your own situation next season, but does any part you think you've just done Jose Mourinho, you've just got the better of Brendan Rodgers? Perhaps you might be cut out for this after all?
I've got a contract for the end of May. I'm not even thinking, if I'm being honest with you, I'm thinking just make sure I go on a good run, this group of players, keep trying to improve every single day we're in training, and then come the end of May, I'll be away on a family holiday.
But would you, one way or another, whether it's you or somebody else in the team, would you like to be back here in the coaching staff one way or another next season?
Back here under...
Yeah, if you're maybe on the coaching staff.
I've not even thought about it, no, honestly, that's the way, if you know me, and then anybody that's close to me, I don't think further ahead in my contract. So I've got a job to do, is to come in here and sort a few issues. Slowly but surely, myself and the coaching staff and everybody who's still in at the club, we're going in the right direction, but there's still a lot of things that we can improve on as a group of players, but also within the training centre, and that's something that we're desperate to do.
John, this is a team that's had its fair share of criticism this season, but what do you think you as a group has done over the last 4 days, getting through to the Europa League quarter-finals and also getting today's result?
Yeah, obviously we've had, probably last week we've had three big results, so
But that's all it is really. We've got to find the consistency throughout the season. There's no point in dwelling on today and getting too far ahead of ourselves. We've got to enjoy today because we deserve it. Well, that's as far as it goes, and we need to find that consistency throughout the season. That's the biggest thing we need to do.
John Suter there, along with Barry Ferguson, the Rangers interim manager. Right, let me hit you with a few comments then, Keith. Kieran says 12-month contract for Barry, then see what happens. William Lang is following it up, saying spot on. Rolling contract for Henry staff. Chris Boyd even said that he was down on Friday and the difference was there to see. But of course, Celtic fans are coming back. A lot of them saying that they kind of want him. Maestro here saying, simply saying Kelty, Hearts and Clyde, obviously referring to Barry Ferguson's previous jobs. And Alloa, to be fair, yeah.
Don't forget.
This one as well, if I can find it, we've got so many comments coming in, and if you want to get involved, please do so. Celt88 says, if Celtic win that 3-2, the headline would be Celtic struggle to win. We dominated 60 minutes of the game.
I don't know what game he's been watching.
I have to agree. I thought I do think in the last 10 minutes I thought Celtic were going to win this year.
I thought, yeah, that's what we've said.
Aye, we did say that,
but they didn't.
Aye.
You know, it was Rangers who went up the other end of the pitch and got the winning goal. I just thought Celtic were nowhere near themselves today. Nowhere near it.
No Name here says, give him, Barry, a 5-year contract now and their fans will call for his head before Halloween. I mean...
well, rinse and repeat. That's what happens.
That's the thing. See with Celtic fans saying that, you can't really argue in the sense that that has kind of happened time and again.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's an easy decision.
I thought, actually, Chris Sutton, our columnist, said on Sky it would be a good appointment for Celtic to give it to Barry Ferguson.
Is that been a bit harsh?
I think so.
Having just beaten Celtic,
especially considered their fellow record sport columnist.
Of course,
no, look, it comes back to the sort of theme of what I was talking about, Daniel. Rangers have got further and further away from themselves over the years. And I think, now whether this is a long-term solution or a short-term solution, I think it was really important that they got people in charge of the squad and the training ground who understand what it looked like, what it felt like when Rangers were a competitive force. You know, I've said it, and I know it's sort of brutal language, but Rangers have allowed themselves to become irrelevant in the domestic scene. And they needed a sharp reminder of, you know, what's required if they are going to take it to Celtic. And Barry Ferguson in 3 weeks has managed to do that. And I think it's whatever way you look at it, and I'm sure Celtic fans will enjoy it, and you know they'll have a laugh about give it to Barry and all that. But they didn't enjoy that today.
Sure they didn't.
Rangers really gave Celtic a game, and you know, even if Celtic had gone to win that 3-2, I still think Barry Ferguson walks away going, well, we were competitive. And I'm not too sure how many times Rangers can say that about going to Celtic Park over recent years. It's been a bit of a trauma for them.
Aye. I mean, it's only first win in 5 years, 2 in the last 27 or something like that in Celtic Park. First manager to win an Old Firm game at Celtic, Rangers manager to win an Old Firm game at Celtic Park since...
Walter Smith.
Well done.
Yeah, and let me draw you a parallel, right? Because I think there might be something in this. Remember when Le Guen got billeted and Rangers did something similar? They went back and they got Walter Smith, the guy that created all the standards, right? They gave him the job, and Rangers that season, so that would have been sort of December, January time, and Rangers had to go to Celtic Park, and the league was over. Celtic were home and hosed just as they are this year. But Walter Smith took that team to Celtic Park and he got a 1-0 win. It was Ugo Ekeog's overhead kick. Yep. And what he was doing there was, I felt, throwing down a marker. Celtic have had it too easy for too long. Well, that changes now. And that's what Walter Smith managed to do. And I think Barry Ferguson may just have done something very similar there. And it's the same thing about Rangers were under a foreign manager who didn't really buy into the club, just didn't fit. I don't think Paul Le Guen's a bad manager, but he was a bad Rangers manager.
Aye.
And it's not for everybody. But Walter Smith, the greatest of them all, went in, corrected the mistakes, changed things, brought things back to the way that, you know, he felt traditionally that Rangers should be. The standards, the training, the intensity, the whole thing just went up through the levels. And that was a marker he threw down. He went on, obviously, to win the league the next season. Now, I'm not saying that Barry Ferguson's about to manage Rangers to a league title next season, but I do see a parallel between what happened then and what's happening right now in front of your eyes.
Scotland the Brave writes in saying Celtic are clearly the benchmark of Scottish football. Football is about trophies. Daily Reckon can dress up however they like to make it look like a competitive league. It's unbelievable. But I do think...
It's not. Nobody's saying it's a competitive league.
I know.
Already said Celtic are going to win the treble.
The reason why I brought it up there is because I think the perfect retort to it is what you just said. It's almost like laying down a marker. It's like, okay, you've won this season, but we're coming back. That's the way it felt today.
That's all that Rangers can do right now.
Aye.
Because they're so far detached from the top. As I said, it was a meaningless match in terms of the title.
Borzuno says, who would you rather, a 20 years experienced plumber or one that's failed 3 apprenticeships and never worked since? He's referring to... I think it refers to Barry Ferguson in some way.
Yeah, and do you know what? There's what I would say to that is that I remember saying to Barry Ferguson when he took the Clyde job and all that, asking him why he was, prepared to go so far down the leagues, Celtic, Alloa, all these examples. And he felt that he wanted the full experience. He wanted to be immersed. He wanted to,
pay his dues and all that.
If it meant taking the strips home and washing them, or going and buying energy drinks for the players, all the wee thing, booking pitches for training sessions, he wanted to do all that because he felt that would give him a managerial education. I think he went way too low, because I think when you're a naturally gifted football player and you're trying to put on sessions, and the guys that you've got just can't do what you would deem to be basics, I think that would become frustrating and difficult to manage. So I just get a feeling for him and there's good examples for, it really didn't work out for him, but he did kind of build a little bit of experience doing it. So he's not gone into this blind, but there's something about this job that seems to fit him, and maybe he was too low down, and this one, he seems to connect with it, and he's reconnected the whole club in a very short space of time. He's made them competitive in an Old Firm game. Now I know, yes, Rangers won the last one, but they're so flaky. And by the way, they could be flaky again before the end of this season, because that's the makeup of this squad. But he's getting something out of them, and they seem to be thriving on his energy, his passion, but also tactically they're getting it right as well.
Aye. There's no denying that certainly today, tactically in the first half, Celtic just couldn't get to grips with it. Didn't really know how to play against the back five.
I'm going to go back to it and say that Callum McGregor's a massive, massive miss.
Well, Big Dom has written in, Celtic really struggled without Callum. He says it's a worry, and I should, just to get these in as well, a lot of Celtic fans saying Rangers celebrate single games, that we celebrate single silverware. This one Ultra says Celtic deserve to get beat today, but it still means hee-haw. They're not winning any trophies. Let's hope they keep the... I didn't realise he'd called Barry a wee sissy. Apologies, Barry, for that. But to go back to Celtic, it was worrying today, I think. And we go back to the last 3 Old Firm games. There's one more at Ibrox, which suddenly becomes, I think, again, no trophy on the line. Doesn't really mean it. But in Brendan Rodgers' mind, it'll be absolutely huge.
Well, we're talking about markers for next season. Now, whether Barry Ferguson remains or not, who knows? But Brendan Rodgers will be looking at it going, right, okay, you've had your fun. Because if Barry Ferguson was to remain in charge for next season, Brendan Rodgers won't want to be going into that on the back of losing to him twice before the end of this season. So, yeah, there's a bit on that game. But again, for Celtic, the bigger picture, the games are meaningless. And that's all Rangers' fault. because they've been responsible for their own demise, their own flakiness, their own inability to carry a threat and a challenge. That's all Rangers' fault. So Celtic can't be blamed for that. But when they go into this game again, well, you'd think the title will be in the bag already.
3 wins from the... So it'll be done by then now.
So, yeah, look... But it doesn't make the game any less compelling. That's the unique thing about this fixture. It actually doesn't matter if there's anything on it in terms of the result of a campaign or a cup final, whatever it is. Whatever it is, you just take that game in isolation and it's compelling, and it very seldom lets you down. There's always something. and 5 goals today. Just a kind of rip-roaring game of football, swinging both ways. It's just a good fixture, isn't it?
I'd put it up there, right? I think this is the best fixture in British football. Most entertaining fixture consistently.
Dramatic, yeah.
Aye.
You're guaranteed drama. You're guaranteed. Sometimes the quality of football might not compare a Liverpool versus Man City or whatever. Obviously, that's a different level in terms of the players and the quality. But in terms of unconfined, raging drama,
Aye.
And this backdrop of mayhem,
wouldn't change it for the world, honestly.
You just wouldn't.
The other thing that I wanted to mention, there was a couple of comments about Maida as well. I wonder if Dyson Maida might have played his last Old Firm game at Celtic Park. I think it's just we talked about how it's such a huge summer for him. He's got 2 years left in his contract, and of course the 26 World Cup's coming up. And I don't know if you maybe watched it or if anyone at home watched it. There was an interview with him on Sky before the game today, and obviously it was translated from Japanese, but it just caught me. See the way he said, I really wouldn't commit my future. I forget the exact quote. He was very hesitant about talking about his future.
Right.
And it just made me think, it just makes it's a huge summer for Celtic as well. Brendan Rodgers down to his last year too.
Well, what I'm told is that Dyson Maida is very settled in Scotland.
Aye.
Likes it.
Aye.
I don't think that he's the same as Kyogo. Kyogo was clearly agitating for a move for some considerable time.
I still can't believe he swapped Celtic for Rennes. But anyway, sorry.
No.
Let me end on this. Oh, I'm sorry, Marzuno does say his interview was worrying. Let me end on this. Well,
I think he's a strange character.
Aye. Aye.
I think that's what you need to factor in. If you speak to anybody around, say, Dyson Maida is a bit of a cold fish, a bit of a strange guy.
Aye.
But everything I'm told is that, he's got a young family, they love it here, he's happy. I don't think that, I wouldn't read too much into it, is what I'm saying. He's maybe just a sort of a peculiar guy.
William McLeod says, Gerrard and Barry Ferguson, the dream team for next season. Would you be running to the bookies to put that on?
Well, I
know you're not a betting man.
It'd be interesting, wouldn't it? If just say they did, because the Stevie G rumours have been floating around for long enough.
But would you think Barry would go for that, really?
Well, that's the interesting bit. If you had gone into that job in a caretaker capacity, you've had relative success, albeit there wasn't much success to be kind of salvaged from the season because it was already gone. But listen, he's got himself into the quarterfinals of the Europa League. He's beaten Celtic at Celtic Park. I wonder if somebody said to him, "Oh, great, we're going to have Steven Gerrard next season. Would you fancy being his number 2?"
What's your gut feeling? Do you think it? I don't know. That seems to me. I don't know Barry Ferguson at all, but
I don't know.
That's a weird one.
I don't know. Particularly Steven Gerrard, because on what basis would Steven Gerrard be better qualified than Barry Ferguson? Because he's a Liverpool legend.
Good point. Aye. And also, if you're Gerrard, as soon as you hit a bad patch, you get this guy behind you that an intern can do a really good job. I don't know. That's a weird one.
So what you're now saying? Barry Ferguson would become the new Graham Murty.
Right. See if you can do a handstand first, and we'll go from there.
Headstand.
Right, headstand. Aye. Look, I think that brings to the end of today's Hotline Live, unless there's anything else you want to add. I know you're a big Liverpool man. Cup final today.
Yep.
Can you really see past them, can you?
Well, what's, by the way, Dundee Derby?
Dundee Derby. Well done, Keith. Well done for reminding me of that. Dundee Derby. Aye.
And kick-off for the Liverpool game is...
It's just kicking off now, I believe, 4:30.
Right,
Dundee Derby has been an absolute cracker. It's currently Dundee United 2, Dundee 3. So... We would
How long to go?
Only 15 minutes or so, plus added time.
Right.
So that could be a huge one.
Dundee did.
Dundee.
I was listening to some of the commentary on the way in. Dundee certainly got off to a better start. They seem to be dominating that, but that'd be a huge result for them.
That's what that would be massive in the sense that they've really fallen away. Really fallen away.
Yeah, they
in top 6 last season.
They need to start digging out some wins.
Basically. And Liverpool 0-0 just kicked off 5 minutes ago.
Right, up the road.
Thanks for watching at home. Thanks for all the comments. We really appreciate it. We'll be back to do it all again at 6 p.m. tomorrow, so hope you can join us then. Cheers.
Cheers.